Today's topic is on resource allocation and the market. What comes to mind when you think of resource allocation? Well, it's how manufacturers or producers would decide how to efficiently use their resources, taking into consideration the forecasted demand by the end user. At the end of this lesson, students should be able to define and explain the concept of supply and demand, identify what are the determinants of supply and demand, explain what causes a shift in the supply and demand curves, define the concepts elasticity of supply and elasticity of demand, and lastly, determine market equilibrium. What do we know about supply and demand? Supply and demand plays a role in your everyday life, but you may not even realize it. Buyers influence demand, while sellers influence supply. The demand curve is downward sloping, whilst the supply curve is upward sloping. When both supply and demand intersect, this is what is known as market equilibrium, and this is where supply and demand are equal. So let's talk about demand first. Demand refers to how much of a product or service is desired by buyers. There are four determinants of demand: price of a commodity, prices of other commodities, also known as complements or substitutes. Substitutes are any product that could be used for another product and still satisfy the needs that the original product was intended to address. For example, apples and oranges, whereas complements are usually products that are purchased together, like bread and peanut butter. Another determinant would be consumer income or wealth, and lastly, consumer taste. The graph illustrates a shift of the demand curve to the right. A to B can be caused by a fall in price, whereas A to C can be caused by an increase in income. Elasticity of demand indicates how sensitive a consumer will be to the change in the price of a good. Demand elasticity is calculated by taking the percentage change in quantity of a good demanded and dividing it by a percentage change in price. When a good has elastic demand, it means that consumers are very sensitive to changes in price. However, inelastic demand means consumers will typically not be very responsive to changes in price. For example, gasoline has very few substitutes. The main determinant for this is the availability of substitutes. This graph illustrates price elasticity. A perfectly elastic curve will be horizontal, whereas a perfectly inelastic curve will be vertical. If demand is inelastic, then increasing the price can lead to an increase in revenue. Supply represents how much of a product or service the market can offer. There are four determinants of supply: price of a commodity, prices of factors of production, state of technology, and other goals of the firm. The graph here illustrates an increase in supply, causing the supply curve to shift to the right. Point A to B is caused by an increase in price, whereas point A to C is caused by improved technology. The elasticity of supply measures the responsiveness of the quantity supplied to a change in the price of a good, with all factors remaining the same. So elasticity of supply is equal to the percentage change in quantity supplied over percentage change in price. The graph illustrates supply elasticity. Elasticity of supply tells us how fast supply responds to quantity demanded and price increase. The higher the elasticity of supply, the faster the supply will increase when demand and price increase. Some goods are more inelastic when there's a supply shortage. So let's recall what you have learned. Try answering these questions to test your understanding of the lesson. Define the concept of demand. Define the concept of supply. What causes a shift in the demand curve to the right? Is the demand curve downward sloping or upward sloping? What is meant by the term price elasticity? What causes a shift in the supply curve to the right? What are the four determinants of supply? How do you calculate elasticity of supply? When does market equilibrium occur? Do you think this screencast was effective for learning? I do hope you found the lesson useful, and thanks for listening.